Welcome back to Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the dynamic speeds test. Now, in a previous video, we talked about the regular speeds test. Now, recall the regular speeds test involves the patient holding their arm out at 90 degrees of flexion with the palm facing up, so supinated. The PT will manually compress the long head of the biceps tendon while applying manual resistance, and the patient attempts to hold that position. And a positive test is going to be indicated by reproduction of their familiar shoulder pain. Now, with speeds test, it was originally designed to be an indicator of a bicipital tendinopathy, and that's why you compress the long head of the biceps tendon. What they actually found over time is that speeds test was more indicative of a slap tear of the shoulder. Now, if somebody did have a bicipital tendinopathy, we can discriminate that from a slap tear by the location of the pain. Because if it's a bicipital tendinopathy, the pain is going to be localized at that long head of the biceps tendon. And there's other things that might also be positive, maybe resisted elbow flexion, resisted supination, sometimes even resisted pronation are also positive as well. But if it was a slap tear, that pain would be described as being more internal, deep within the glenohumeral joint. And normally it's described as a deep, diffuse pain within the joint. Okay? But one of the limitations of the regular speeds test is if you have higher level patients, particularly athletes, overhead throwing athletes that might actually have a slap tear, they're not going to necessarily exhibit a positive test at this 90-degree position. You may actually have to go a little bit higher. And so dynamic speeds test not only is dynamic in the sense that it's moving, but it also allows you to go beyond that 90 degrees of flexion. And so in that sense, it's able to pick up a little bit more slap tears in higher level athletes or just higher level patients in general than the regular speeds test might be able to. So without further ado, let's go take a look at that test right now. So to perform the dynamic speeds test, the patient will be positioned either in standing or sitting. I'm going to have her in the standing position here. And then the PT will position the patient's shoulder in the flexion plane with the elbow bent to 90 degrees. That just means that arm is right in front of you and the elbow is bent to 90 degrees like this. Now the PT is going to apply manual resistance against two movements. Those are shoulder flexion and elbow flexion. Okay? So let's take a look at what that looks like right now. Okay, so with my left arm here, I'm going to be resisting shoulder flexion, okay? With my right arm over here, I'm going to be resisting elbow flexion, and you're going to resist both those movements simultaneously. And what the patient essentially is going to do is they're going to attempt to keep their elbow bent to 90 degrees and elevate their shoulder like this in the flexion plane, okay? So the patient will attempt to resist those forces as they actively elevate their shoulder. So let's take a look at that right now. Obviously, in the regular speeds test, patient just holds their shoulder out like this. Now, granted, you're compressing the long head of the biceps tendon, but the test is performed only at 90 degrees. And as we talked about in the introduction of the video, a lot of higher level patients, particularly throwing athletes who are very strong, very fit from the get-go, they may not have symptoms in this position. Now, granted, there's other slap tear special tests, but they're going to have symptoms sometimes above that 90 degrees. And so that's where the dynamic speeds test becomes more useful than just the static regular speeds test, right? So that being said, a positive dynamic speeds test is going to be indicated by reproduction of the patient's familiar shoulder pain. And as with these other labral tear type tests, the pain is normally going to be described by the patient as being deep in the shoulder joint. It's going to be diffuse in there, meaning that it's difficult to localize the exact position. It's not like a supraspinatus tear where they've got it right on the insertion of the supraspinatus. Okay, it's more diffuse within the glenohumeral joint. Okay, and for a lot of these higher level patients, particularly athletes, they're going to describe that pain at or above the 90-degree mark of shoulder flexion. Okay, so hopefully this video gave you a good understanding of dynamic speeds test and how it differs from the regular speeds test. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification button for notifications for all videos in the future. Thank you very much.